Hello, this is Lauren from Wearing History Patterns and Wearing History blog. I am doing a video today to talk about 1910 skirt side fasteners. And if you don't know what I mean, that is probably because you're used to putting in modern zippers into things. And while if you want to do it for modern wear, that's a perfectly acceptable use for how to get into your 1910 skirt. I have researched a little bit of an original that I have, and I have applied this technique to this 1910 skirt pattern. Now I have a couple 1910 skirt patterns at the time this comes out. I have the 1910 suit, and I also have the new skirt pattern, which is this one right here. So in the original patterns these were based on, they did not ever give you instructions for side plackets, well, barely ever. So I had to kind of look in my old books, do a bit of research, and in the end I ended up looking at a 1910 skirt I have, and that's what I have used as the base for how we do the side fastener in this skirt. Now you can apply this to any skirt you want. It's not only applicable for this time period, you can use it in the 20s, you can use it in the 30s, even later if you want, even though people were using zippers by the late 30s and 40s. Some home sewers continued to use the earlier techniques because they were familiar with them. So I have this 1910 skirt that I'm going to show you the details on first to show you how I came by this technique. This was a mass-produced skirt. It has a label in the jacket that says Princess Coats, I believe. So it does have serging on the inside, and I'm using that in my skirt because I like the convenience of modern serging as a seam finish. However, you do not have to do that. It is period because it's in this skirt, but modern and even vintage home sewers don't always have access to a serger or overcaster or a marrow machine. Those are all the same thing. So basically that, if you look inside of your pants or your shirt that's store-bought and you see that the edges are overcast with a layer of thread, it kind of like wraps around the outside, that keeps it from fraying in the wash. That's called the overlocking or the marrow stitch, or the serged stitch. It's all the same type of thing, although we could get technical about what the difference is. So let's talk about the skirt. On this one in particular, the fastener is here. See, we've got this side pocket. Your side seam is running down here. And the pocket kind of bridges the gap between the front and the back skirt. So the front is quite plain. The back is also quite plain. It's got some gathering here at the back waist. But the side has these great pockets with these flaps. Now, I'm going to do a video to talk about how to put this in, even though you have instructions in the Wearing History version of this pattern. There were no instructions in the original period 1910 skirt pattern. I found a way that I think is easy to put this side thing in. And you're going to do that before you apply the pockets. So just to recap, I did a video earlier about interior waistbands. This skirt, it overlaps here and then it snaps here. So to get out of it, you have to unpop this snap, and then open it, and then this is where your hooks and eyes and snaps will be. In the period, they often called the snaps patent fasteners because it was just a newish technology. Hooks and eyes, of course, have been around forever. But if you ever come across that terminology, snap fasteners are the same as a patent fastener. So for this skirt, you get into it on the side front, so it's actually over here. Actually, I lie. That's the back. That's the back of the skirt. There's pockets in the front. It's been a long time since I wore this skirt, so I didn't remember. But yeah, this is the fastener that we based it off of. For this one, it's the same hidden 1910s closure. You've got these buttons that come over, and then you undo the buttons, and then you have to undo, oh, wrong side. Undo the buttons, and then undo your hooks, and then there's how you get into your skirt. So I'll give you some close-up visuals of this to help you understand how we do this. Now, we are using overlocking on my example. If you don't have an overlocking machine, you're going to just whip those by hand. Whipped edges are perfectly period correct. They did that all the way back. So it's historically accurate. If you don't want to bother with that, you could probably also pink the edges, though I have not found period examples in my collection. I'm not saying they don't exist, they just aren't in my personal collection of side fasteners. And I do need to give a premise here that although this is the method that I chose to use for this fastening of this skirt, there's in no way is this the only way you can do this. There are many different examples in the period. There, even in my books, every book has a different technique that it implemented. I just found that this one for this type of skirt opening seemed to work very well. If you have something that you want to supplement, go ahead and do that. There's no rules. As long as it fastens up the side, you're good to go. So I will show you my method, and I hope you enjoy the video and it helps you visualize what to do in your own skirts. Thanks for watching. So here is the back of our 1910s skirt. This is period original, like I mentioned before. This is where your fastening is. The side is completely decorative, but they're still functional. They button and unbutton, but you don't need them to get into the skirt. This side is functional in that you need to unbutton these in order to get into the skirt. Very similar to the idea of our belt that goes across and you need to snap it over in order to hide the fastening. They were really into kind of a mystery of how you got into your garment. 1910s garments fasten in very creative and unique ways. So up close you can see that these are probably machine done buttonholes. Since this was a production piece, I'm not sure what these are. There's some sort of early plastic that mimics like a wood or a tiger eye. So to get into it, you unbutton this, and then you've got the hooks and eyes over here, and then you've got this placket with snaps. Now the placket is nice and wide, and this is so that you will avoid any peekage from underneath, because, you know, in this period you were wearing lots of petticoats, or maybe not lots, but at least one petticoat, and your drawers underneath. In 1930s skirts, you'll see the same thing. The plackets are usually decently wide. The interesting thing of this is that there is an underplant placket, which is a cotton sateen. In the back of this is also cotton sateen. The reason that they did this was to eliminate the bulk from, since it's a wool fabric, they did not want all that extra bulk on the side seam, because this will make it kind of stick out more. If you're familiar with sewing from this era, from the Victorian era, pretty much any era, if you've got a side fastener in your skirt, sometimes it's more obvious where it is because it gets bulky on the side. The period answer to that was to use some sort of a lining. In this case, it's a cotton sateen. Now here's a view of the inside skirt belt, like in the last video I talked about. This is your visual. These hooks here, these loops here on the side are hand sewn. And the reason that these were put into place was so that you could hang your skirt on a hanger. They didn't use the clippy ones as much as we do now. I've even read period examples where the gentlemen would hang their pants by the loop on the back, and that was thought to preserve the life of the garment instead of laying it flat. So it has the same thing on the inside of this tailored type skirt. Now, I give you a pattern piece for this in 2 pieces. This is in 2 pieces. You've got your self that matches this, so that if you get any peekage here, it will look like it's a continuation of the skirt. And then you've got the underside in your lining fabric. If you're doing this in a wash fabric, you can use the same type front and back as long as it's not too bulky. And then this side, like I said, is that cotton sateen. Now what you do is you sew this piece on here, but this is on the fold. So you fold this onto itself so that the folded edge then aligns over here, and this side is sewn to the garment itself, and then it's top stitched down to keep that from peeking out. This will make more sense as our video progresses. Then on the other side, it's just an extension, which is first finished at top and at bottom. And the reason you finish it at top and bottom is because your interior waistband is going to stop at the edge of this placket. The interior waistband measures your actual waist measure, so that's why it stops here and it stops here, because it butts up to each other as if it was only going around the circumference of your waist. So I hope that makes sense. Let's take a look on the inside here, and you will see what I was talking about with the serged edge. Now, so the pieces were first sewn to each other, top and bottom, to finish those. Flipped right side out, the corners pressed out, and then top stitched to keep it from flapping on itself. You can omit that step if you want to. Then this is abutted with the 3/8 seam allowance still sticking out of the top, so that when this edge is finished, this all will lay flush. You stitch that edge down, and then if you were doing industrial sewing, you would serge this edge. Another option, if you're doing this yourself and you don't want to overcast this edge and you don't have a serger, is to simply turn the edge under of the lining fabric and encase this seam here. So at the bottom of the placket, you can see that these two edges are sewn together. This is also finished at the bottom. They're stitched here, and then on the inside, that's all finished really beautifully. This all will make a lot more sense as we do it ourselves, I promise. I just want to give you a visual of how this works before we progress, so you can see a period example. Now you're going to notice also that this is wider finished than this is. That's okay. That's what this is like. So this is narrower than this. Again, that's because this underlap, they want to give you a lot in case a snap pops up, you have any mishaps. You're not showing everybody your petticoats. There's just a continuation of the self fabric underneath there. Now I'm also going to note really quickly about the interior waistband here, that it's stitched down here and it's stitched down here. At one point this had an extension put in. Yours is probably going to be belting or grosgrain or Petersham all the way across for your waistband. So just imagine that this continues all the way to here, and they're stitched down there and stitched down there. So the belt is not actually hooking to itself. You're hooking the edge of the garment to this, and the stitching here on the extension and on the front is what keeps that belt secure around your waist. It's not attached to itself. I've seen period examples where it is attached to itself, but for our purpose with this extension, it's better to just have it stitched like this.